Hey guys, so I saw this kind of going around a bit in the specifically TarotTube community, and I thought it'd be really fun to try it. Um, so I decided to compile my top 5 tarot and oracle decks of 2019, which oddly I thought was going to be really difficult, but it ended up being really easy. I know that this prompt is actually also part of Ethony's 31 Days of Tarot, which I did really want to be a part of this year, but I actually didn't realize that it was in January, and then the video started popping up and I just kind of felt like I wasn't prepared or ready for it, so maybe next year. But I did want to do this video just for fun, so I figured I would share with you guys the top 5 tarot and oracle decks that I worked with in 2019. So I think I will actually start with tarot and then oracle. I'm gonna move my oracle over. Alright. First things first is the Tarot of the Trees. This is a little deck that you can get on Etsy. The author's name is Dana O'Driscoll. Another Dana? Except for she doesn't have the I in her name. I have the unusual Scandinavian spelling, which honestly I love. So I did edge mine in black, but this is a cute little pocket deck, honestly, that I'd say it's a pocket deck because I mean it's tiny. It's like poker size, basically. But the incredible part about this deck is that it is able to, let's see if we can get a good angle here without the glare of the lights. This is gonna be a problem. It's got quite a bit of, there we go, emotion for just honestly trees. I mean, it's incredible and very well thought out. And the other part that I greatly enjoy about this is that each suit is a season, so I really kind of like that aspect to it. But it's a very easy reader for one, and it's just one that I really enjoy, especially because I love trees. So yeah, I love this deck. Honestly, it is also very affordable. I think the artist sells it on her Etsy for like 25 bucks. So fantastic little deck. I highly recommend it. It's just, it is a workhorse deck, a very easy read, as I said, and just wonderful. I'm gonna say that about all these decks, that they're just wonderful. The next one is one that came out at the beginning of 2019, but I didn't get it until close to the end because I wasn't sure, honestly. I was taking my time with my decisions on purchasing it, but that is the Crow Tarot by MJ Cullinane, I think is how you say her name. She is a Pacific Northwest artist. I've actually found a considerable amount of artists that do tarot or oracle are actually from the Pacific Northwest. Coincidentally, I'm wearing my Seattle hoodie tonight. It's one of my favorite Seattle hoodies. But I love to support people from my home, and not only that, but this deck, I like the fact that it's very Rider-Waite Smith, so it is pretty easy to read, much like the Tarot of the Trees, as I mentioned as well. But the other great part about this is that the figures are crows, but yet still it kind of captures that magical or mysticalness of the crow, you know. The other thing that I really kind of liked about it is the fact that I love the Hermit card. It makes me kind of think of Odin, so, or any other deity associated with crows or ravens. I don't know, I just really like this deck, and honestly, this, like I said, this is one that I can pick up and work with really easily. I actually gave a reading to a friend of mine using this deck, and it was one of the first readings I've ever done that I looked at it and I was like, oh my god, I blew this out of the water. I hit the nail on the head. I did a fantastic reading. I don't read a whole lot for other people. I tend to just kind of keep it close to close friends to practice on. I don't really intend on ever professionally reading, I don't believe, but it just was a nice boost of confidence, and I do think it was because I kind of owe it to the deck too, for me to be able to connect with it and to be able to convey the messages to my friend in the way that he needed to hear. And I think it was done because of the fact that this is such a fantastic deck. Now I'm struggling to get it in the box, of course. So even though I waited on this one, I'm glad that I purchased it. I'm going to be stacking these behind me. You'll probably see them. The next one is a deck that I wanted for a whole year and a half, I'm pretty sure, prior to purchasing it in early 2019. This was a late birthday present from my husband last year. This is the Marigold Tarot. This is my first like Marseille style deck, and I have a hard time with Marseille just because I tend to look at tarot from a very emotional lens, and so I prefer decks that have that type of human emotion conveyed in the cards. I can connect to it easier, and even with Tarot of the Trees or the Crow Tarot, even though those are not human figures, human emotion is still conveyed in those images, whereas this deck, not so much for the pips. But I liked it because it was a challenge. And this deck is, quality-wise, this deck is very, very well put together. It is beautiful. And it's one of those ones that I kind of like the fact that there's no gender, really, to these figures, because they're all skeletal. And there's just something very captivating about this deck. It's dark, but it's not dark. It's interesting, honestly. But it was one that I was really, I had been very drawn to for quite some time, and I was really happy when my husband got it for me for my birthday last year. But yes, so that is the Marigold Tarot, and it is a beauty. I love this deck. The next one is one that came into my collection in late 2019, and I actually came across it and kind of went back and forth with wanting to have it for maybe like not that long, honestly. At first I kind of was not sure if I would connect with the artwork or the fact that it is a square deck, and then the more that I looked at it, the more that I read the author's intention behind it, I was like, okay, no, this is amazing, and I really want to work with this deck. And that is the Dark Days Tarot by Ren McMurdo. This deck, the majors are white and the minors have a black background, and it's a different deck for sure, but there's so much to it, and I just can't get enough of it. Like, I keep finding myself cycling back to this deck, even though I use all of the decks in my collection. I love and adore each one of them, but there are certain decks that I keep coming home to, and ever since I got this deck, it's definitely one of them for sure. The images, I think, kind of pull me in. They leave me thinking, and I tend to walk away from those readings really kind of being almost haunted by the things that I kind of uncovered in them. And I like to use this deck on especially if I'm kind of feeling lost or needing some direction, which I tend to go to tarot in general for that, but there are certain decks that I tend to pull up more if I'm feeling really raw or if I need some very deep guidance, and this has definitely become one of those decks. I am so grateful for it. It's a very, very magical deck. So this is the Dark Days Tarot. The last tarot deck in my collection is unfortunately out of print. I don't really have many out of print decks. I think I only own 2 now. So I mean, you won't see that very often on my channel. However, I did hear that I think this one is getting published by a mass market publisher. But this is the Dark Goddess Tarot. And at first, I will admit, I was not too sure what I thought about the artwork, but I have been looking for a Goddess Tarot deck for quite some time. In fact, I owned the Goddess Tarot by Chris Walder for about a decade, and I didn't pick it up, really. It was beautiful, but I just didn't use it the way that I had hoped. And so I ended up coming across this through a friend of mine, and I was able to purchase it through the artist, and about 2 weeks later she announced that it was out of print. So I was very grateful that I was able to grab a copy, especially because this ended up being a huge staple in my practice. I ended up being really inspired by Lisa at Supportive Tarot to start using this for dark moon pulls and to focus my shadow work on what each goddess had to provide for me and what the message was that they had to convey. And it's ended up being just very enriching and something that I so desperately needed, especially for a direction for shadow work. I tend to need, sometimes I need sort of a structure. That's the word I'm looking for. When it comes to a focus or a goal that I need to achieve or would like to achieve. The other deck that came into my collection, which I'm not bringing up in this, but I will do an honorable mention, is the Mariel. That has actually become a deck that I've used strictly for shadow work. But this deck I use for shadow work, but I also just use it because it's fantastic. My only one gripe about this deck is that I can't shuffle it. Like, I have to shuffle it the long way, and even then I'm throwing cards everywhere because it's very long, and even though I have long fingers, I have a problem. I can't shuffle it very well. And I want to take very good care of it because it's, like I said, it is out of print. But this is basically the goddess deck that I had been looking for, and once I found it, I was like, this completes me. This is what I needed. If only I could find a Goddess Oracle deck that would be a good companion to this, but I'm extremely picky, so maybe someday. So yes, that is the Dark Goddess Tarot by Ellen Lorenzi Prince, and hopefully it will be coming to mass market, I think, later this year, because if you don't have this in your collection, you're missing out. Alright, on to Oracle decks. So I recently did a video on this one, so this will be a little bit of a refresher, but in some of the progression that I have made in my personal healing journey, I had found myself searching for a deck that I would hope would invoke power within me and be kind of a self-healing oracle. I really wanted something that was based on that, but I'm extremely picky about what I look for. And honestly, like, it can't be, it's got to have a little bit of punch to it, I guess. I like to have a lot of balance within the things that I do. But I ended up finding the Personal Power Oracle by Deja DeWitt, and this deck is incredible. I don't think she has it right now. I think it's currently out of stock right now on her website, and I think she had said that it would be for a few months, but I know it's not technically out of print, it's just not in stock. I think she's waiting for another print run. But this deck, what I've ended up really finding myself doing with this deck is I will either use it for daily pulls when I am really going through a bout of depression, or I will take one of these cards and I will find an intention in here that I need to focus on, and then I will draw tarot cards around it and basically have this be my signifier. And it has been extremely rewarding to do this. It was focusing. Oh, it was. Of course, now when I pull away. Let's see if I can find a good example of one I used recently. Like say, for example, I'm struggling with making a decision, and I would pull this card that says I follow my heart, and then I would pull tarot cards around it to basically kind of ask, how do I follow my heart? How do I achieve this? And these would basically be used as like my goal. And that's actually been incredible. Oh, there's a runaway card in here. I can hear it. That happens sometimes. There it is. I'm the creator. This is a beautiful card, especially if you're a mother like me. But I have found that to be really, really helpful. And I cannot say enough about this deck. She has a few other decks. I know she has one called My Quality Time. That's another self-care deck, and I know that one is currently in stock. But once again, this is the Personal Power Oracle by Deja DeWitt. The next one is a deck that seems to have a very specific flavor to it, and I honestly think it's fantastic. I cannot get enough of this deck, and truthfully, I really enjoy her podcast. This is the Magic and Mediums Oracle by Anya Reed. She has a podcast called Magic and Mediums as well, and I've been listening to it, and it's been really great. I love her. I love her energy, and she seems to have a lot of people on there that are just amazing to listen to. She did one recently with Shaheen Miro, who did Tarot for Troubled Times. He co-authored with Teresa Reed, which is a fantastic book. And it just was such a great pleasure to listen to them talk about how tarot can heal us, and how seeking our shadows and healing through our shadows and healing through some of our shit it was just really enriching for me, because it's just been something that I've been trying to focus on. There is a cat hair on this deck, of course. There's cat hairs everywhere. But this deck is really specific to your spiritual practice, which I really enjoyed. And there's a lot in it. I kind of have used this in the same that I have used the Personal Power Oracle, but more so specifically to my practice. I've also done daily draws with this deck as well, especially in weeks or time periods when I really wanted to focus more on enriching my spiritual practice. I have also taken cards out and displayed them on my altar for intentions that I've maybe wanted to work with, or a focus that I've maybe wanted to have for the current moon phase. So say for this moon phase, I would want to work on conjuring or taking up a magical study, or divination. I love that card. I'm a divination witch. Respect. It's just and I adore the artwork. I really do. The guidebook is really meaty. There's a lot in there, and like I said, I really like Anya Reed. If you don't listen to her podcast, you definitely should, because like I said, she has some amazing discussions with many people who are in the magical tarot and or witchy community. She even recently did one with Maven Unmasked, who I know is here on YouTube, and it was really great to listen to her talk, especially because there's a lot of discussion, a lot of ones on discussion of mediumship, which is something that I've been trying to understand about myself. So it's been kind of refreshing to hear other people talk about that and know that I'm not alone. So that is the Magic and Mediums Oracle. Let's see. The next deck was another one that honestly, when I first saw it, I was like, when I first heard of it without actually seeing it, I was like, oh, I don't think I want that. because quite honestly, I'm not a person really who likes to work with any sort of angel energy. And just the title of this deck made me judge it, you know, book by the cover, and I should have known better because this had quickly become one of my favorites. And what was I thinking? So this is the Angels and Ancestors Oracle by Kyle Gray. And I honestly, like I said, was blown away by this deck because it's very versatile. There's a lot to it, and you can honestly use it as sort of a archetype. Just to start showing in there. But I also like the fact that the angels in this were referred to as guardians, and for some reason that verbiage was just more comforting to me. It just was easier for me to relate to and not feel so weird about. I'm not really sure, but the word angel just isn't something that I really gravitate towards. Maybe there's some stuff in there that I gotta figure out about that. But the artwork is by Lily Moses, and it is just stunning. They're sticking together. Winter Static. But this is one that's really got a lot into it, and I haven't tried it yet, but I do believe there is a past life reading spread in the guidebook, which I really should check out. I did get a deck this year that is specifically for past lives, and I should share that with you guys on my channel. I did a podcast episode on my friend's podcast where I gave him a past life reading. But this deck I think you could also use if you wanted to for past lives. I know it says specifically in the guidebook how to, but I have not looked into that yet. But I've used this mostly for daily pulls, and I've used it for some of my moon or seasonal readings. Again, I do feel like this is one that you could, this card stalked me quite a bit, by the way. You could use as a sort of intention setter as well. But this was one that, like I said, I was so pleasantly surprised by, can't talk, because of the amount of depth that it had to it, and basically how it delivered everything and presented everything was way different than I thought. And once I started to see walkthroughs of it, I was like, really, this is actually something I'm very drawn to, and I was really, really glad that I purchased it, because it has a kind of a lot of what I'm looking for something if I was going to have a deck like this. So that is the Angels and Ancestors Oracle. The guidebook is really thick too, by the way. I love me a thick guidebook because it means there's a lot of information in there. And I'm an Aquarius and I like my knowledge, so. Alright, last two. This one I got actually at the end of 2018. I ended up pre-ordering it and it came out in October 2018. Also, this one's super glossy, so we're probably gonna have some glare issues. But this is the Queen of the Moon Oracle. This is by Stacey DeMarco. Told you, glare issues. This deck is really awesome. I like I'm not really one for this sort of dreamy imagery, but how this was done, I ended up finding myself really being okay with it, because sometimes this can be so ungrounded, this artwork can be so ungrounded that I have a hard time connecting to it, but this was enough that it made it very relatable, and it made it very easy to attach to. I ended up pairing this with my Moonchild Tarot, and it was fantastic. Like, the experiences that I had reading with these two decks together was really incredible. And I'm a moon baby. I love anything involving the moon. I'm a Cancerian moon. I'm actually about hopefully getting a tattoo this year, sometime this year, with the moon on it, and that will be, I think, oh, I have one other with the moon on it. But I also have stars on my arm and all this stuff, you know. I'll probably have more tattoos than have the moons on them, but yeah, you can't go wrong with this deck, honestly. I don't think you can, because it's another one that really is versatile and you can use it with so much, and it really enriches your readings if you pair it with tarot. But like I said, I found specifically that it spoke with the Moonchild tarot really, really well. And this is another one that's really great for daily pulls, or even to focus on self-love. So yeah, that is Queen of the Moon Oracle by Stacey DeMarco. Mine has a bow in it. I don't know why. I don't know if I'll shuffle it, but whatever. And then last deck. I did a full video on this as well, and this deck hit me right in the home. This is the Illuminated Earth Oracle by Claire Mack. This is another Pacific Northwest artist, which, by the way, so is Ren McMurdo, who did the Dark Days Tarot. And so is Stacia Burlington, who's the artist of Sassurabito. So there's a lot of Pacific Northwest artists. My background changed and now I'm glowing blue. Now it's gonna bother me and I just gotta fix it. Anyone else still like trying to recover from the full moon? Because that's me. That full, I'm, like I said, I'm a Cancer moon sign. That full moon in Cancer just screwed with me hardcore. And it just, I've been kind of a mess since. But anyway, this is the Illuminated Earth Oracle. I get all the way to the last deck and then I'm like, bleh. And it is just incredible. This is the deck that, honestly, I think it leaves you with so much to sink into. It keeps wanting to focus on my face. Especially because it's not exactly, I'm trying to find a good way to hold it. It's not exactly one that you can just look at the card and be like, oh yeah, that's it. I mean, I feel like you really have to sink into these cards quite a bit. But oh my gosh, it is so incredible. I really like this grief card. Why are you not focusing? Come on. You know what? We're not gonna mess with it. I did do a whole video on this deck. So if you guys want to see that, just because my webcam isn't cooperating. I think they're sticking together. Yes, they are. There are a few human figures in this deck, but honestly not a whole lot. And the human figures that are in this deck, I think are very well placed. But yeah, this deck really has a lot to it. A lot of layers, a lot to sink into, and a lot to offer. I actually ended up doing my year ahead spread this year with the Moonchild Tarot and this deck. Because I wanted to do a tarot and an oracle for each month this year for the year ahead. And so I chose to do this deck as my oracle. This is the one card I don't like because the barnacles kind of freak me out. I have that phobia where I don't like organic holes. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but it just makes me really, really uncomfortable. Other than that, this deck is incredible, and that's really my own thing. It's nothing against the artist. That's my own problem. But the artist is really sweet too. I did speak with her a little bit. I told her I would be doing this review, or a review on my channel, not this review. This is just me mentioning it again. Oh, I love this English card. That's another thing I really enjoyed about this deck, is that it's very well balanced. And like I said, I kind of tend to want those in my oracles specifically. So yeah, that is the Illuminated Earth Oracle by Claire. So those are my top 5 tarot and oracle for 2019. I have rambled for 30 minutes now. Sorry guys. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video.